What was supposed to be the last Godzilla movie ended up breathing some much-needed life into the franchise. Because Toho intended for this to be the last Godzilla film, Destroy All Monsters brings together Toho's large collection of monsters. Included in the film are Godzilla, Rodan, Anguirus, Gorosaurus, Mothra, Minya, Manda, Kumonga, Baragon, Vran, and King Ghidorah. This movie, while in the same continuity as the rest of the Showa-era Godzilla films, takes place in the future. So technically, this movie doesn't take place in 1968, and should be placed at the end of the series' timeline. At the end of the 20th century, Earth's monsters have been contained on an island known as Monsterland. This facility is located somewhere in the Ogasawara Islands. This setup allows for the monsters to live in peace without threatening humanity. However, this is threatened when an alien race called the Keloks seize control of the island and its monsters. The Keloks unleash the monsters on a destructive rampage across the world in an attempt to conquer Earth. We get to see Godzilla in New York, Rodan in Moscow, and Gorosaurus in Paris. One of the main characters, Katsuo Yamane, and the crew of the Moonlight SY-3 are sent into battle as Earth's defense against the Keloks, as the Earth struggles to discover and disable the source of the aliens' mind control. When the monsters are finally freed, they must battle King Ghidorah, who now confronts the monsters at Mount Fuji and now under Kelok control, leading up to the most famous and biggest monster battle in Toho history. The cast for this film is again not very rememberable. Akira Kubo returns as Katsuo, a far departure from his first role as Tetsuo from Invasion of Astro Monster. Jun Tazaki and Kenji Sahara also return. While the cast certainly has great chemistry on screen, there just isn't anything in particular that sticks out. For what was supposed to be the last Godzilla film in the series, this movie goes all out. It features a large monster cast, but the monsters don't get a whole lot of screen time, and that's disappointing. When the monsters are on screen, it's glorious. It's fun seeing the monsters show up in different cities across the world instead of just keeping them in Japan. Unfortunately, for a movie titled Destroy All Monsters, there isn't a whole lot of screen time dedicated to the monsters. This changes when the monsters attack Tokyo and you start to see them more. I understand that some of the suits may not have been in great condition, but it would have been great to see more of them. The movie does seem to drag a little bit at parts until the battle at Mount Fuji, but there is a fair amount of time dedicated to the battle which makes up for it. Personally, I don't mind the final battle ending up being against King Ghidorah. It's always fun watching him fight everyone and then get overpowered. I remember when I was younger and I would recreate that and the Tokyo destruction scenes from this movie. The team up at the end with all the monsters really had an Avengers vibe. Overall, I found this to be a really fun movie. It's a historic and classic movie that no G fan should miss. I'm gonna give this movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. After the success of Destroy All Monsters, Toho decided to change the direction of Godzilla and try and have him appeal even more to a child audience. In 1969, All Monsters Attack was released, and the movie heavily uses stock footage pulled from all the previous Godzilla films. All Monsters Attack implies that the movie takes place in real life. This would place it outside of the already established timeline. In this movie, the monsters only live in the main character Ichiro's mind. This movie is also very kid-centric and pulls away from its usual theme, the dangers of nuclear war. This movie does, however, shine a light on the issues facing Japan at the time, where a lot of children were forced to raise themselves due to their parents constantly working. We follow Ichiro Miki, who has to take care of himself because his parents work long hours. He daydreams about visiting Monster Island, home to Godzilla, Minya, and various other monsters. Ichiro befriends Minya and learns that they are both very similar. Minya also deals with being bullied by a new kaiju, Gabra. Ichiro helps Minya face his bullying and conquers his fears. The two teach each other lessons about bravery. Godzilla battles with numerous kaiju, but it should be noted that most of the fights are stock footage. He fights Kamacuras, Giant Condor, Kumonga, and Ibra. At the end of the film, Godzilla helps Minya and defeats Gabra once and for all. In real life, Ichiro is captured by 2 bank robbers. Inspired by Minya, Ichiro takes what he learns and uses it to escape the kidnappers. The cast for this film is not very rememberable. In fact, I didn't even remember many of the characters' names prior to rewatching this movie. Kenji Sahara returns, but his performance isn't noteworthy. The movie mainly follows children, and they are all, for the most part, annoying. This is, after all, a movie geared toward them. I don't think that Ichiro is that annoying, but I'll be honest, I really didn't care about what happened to him. It's an interesting perspective to take, but kids come off as more whiny and annoying than anything else. I don't think there's really anything that stands out to me in this film. I think that the bigger message this movie is trying to tell is interesting and important, but on a whole, the movie falls falls flat. I don't think following children or having a child as the main character makes for a great movie, especially a monster movie. It's fun seeing all the monsters again, but it's all stock footage, which I think takes you out of it. It's jarring seeing the different Godzilla suits for each battle Godzilla does. It's just a shame they didn't do more with this movie and relied on stock footage so much. I remember when I was younger I'd get pissed anytime I'd see it. I think Gabra was an interesting kaiju, his design is unique and it's a shame we never see it again. I don't think this movie is a necessity for G-fans to see right away. I'm gonna give this movie 2 out of 5 stars. Godzilla would take a small break and return again in 1971's Godzilla vs. Hedorah. In Godzilla vs. Hedorah there was a big emphasis on the environment and how mankind impacts global warming. This film changes up the formula a bit and takes on a psychedelic tone which helps make the film feel more unique. It also solidifies Godzilla's role as a hero in the Showa era, showing just how far his character has changed since 1954. The bizarre alien life form Hedorah arrives on Earth in a comet and quickly begins to grow. As Hedorah evolves throughout the film by feeding off pollution, he becomes a threat to mankind. Godzilla, sensing this, rises to fight Hedorah but struggles because of how the man-made pollution accelerates Hedorah's growth. He grows from a large tadpole to gigantic proportions, which enabled him to switch between different forms. This creates a real challenge for Godzilla as he shows up sporadically to fight and stop the ever-growing monster. As Hedorah evolves and becomes larger and more powerful, he creates mass destruction throughout Japan. He gets to the point where he dwarfs Godzilla's 50-meter height, making Hedorah one of Godzilla's toughest foes to date. Aiding Godzilla in his war against Hedorah and pollution, Toru Yano, a marine biologist, and his son Ken try and figure out ways to defeat Hedorah. Godzilla confronts Hedorah one last time atop Mount Fuji for a decisive final duel. The cast for this film is not very memorable again. In fact, I didn't even remember many of the characters other than Ken and Dr. Yano prior to rewatching this movie. The cast has a very good chemistry on screen, which keeps the movie going. I enjoyed watching Mary and Toshio, especially during the nightclub scene when they go to the party on Mount Fuji. While I found Ken to be a little annoying, he was nowhere near as annoying as Ichiro from All Monsters Attack. Interestingly enough, the actor inside the Hedorah suit would go on to play Ganigan in the next 2 films. He would later return to play Godzilla during the Heisei era. Godzilla vs. Hedorah was one of the first Godzilla films I saw when I was younger, so this movie holds a lot of nostalgia for me. I always was captivated by the psychedelic tone of the film. I always found how Toho used animated cartoons throughout the movie really interesting. In fact, some of the imagery used in this film is still relevant today, especially the cartoon of people wearing masks. I also liked the film's environmental message. I liked how Hedorah wasn't an easy enemy Godzilla faced. He really had to keep trying to defeat him. The Godzilla suit was obviously falling apart, but it doesn't bother me much. I think that Hedorah was a really interesting kaiju and had a cool roar. The final battle at Mount Fuji was incredible, and I always liked how they made Godzilla fly. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It's a bit campy, and yes, I know, a fairly controversial one. With that being said, I think it's one no G fan should miss. I'm going to give this movie 4 out of 5 stars. After 1971's Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla would return in 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan. Since the tone and style of Godzilla vs. Hedorah was a departure from the previous Godzilla films, this created a lot of controversy, especially at Toho, and caused Godzilla vs. Gigan to return back to its previous style and tone of the earlier films in the franchise. It does, however, introduce us to a cool new monster, Gigan. Gengo, a struggling manga artist, gets a job at an under-construction theme park called World Children's Land. Little does Gengo know, but this amusement park turns out to be a cover for the M-Space Hunter Nebula aliens' plot to conquer Earth. Working together with Machiko and Shosaku, Gengo quickly figures out the aliens' true intentions. While the trio try and stop the alien plot, Gigan, an alien cyborg along with King Ghidorah, are summoned to destroy human civilization. In the meantime, Gengo and his friends try and sabotage the Nebulon's plans, while King Ghidorah and Gigan destroy Tokyo. Thankfully, Godzilla and Anguirus learn of the Nebulon's evil plans to destroy the world and set out to stop the space monsters. They confront Gigan and King Ghidorah at Tokyo Bay, but the space monsters try and set a trap to get rid of Godzilla once and for all. Gengo and his friends try and sabotage the aliens based at Godzilla Tower, while Godzilla and Anguirus mount a final assault at the amusement park to stop the space monsters and save the world. Overall, I felt like the cast was fairly engaging. I thought Gengo was an interesting main character, but not very rememberable. I liked the group dynamic between the 3 friends. I think they had excellent chemistry on screen. I think they did a good job of keeping the story going. It's not often the human characters are able to help Godzilla in his fights. When the group manages to destroy Godzilla Tower, they essentially save Godzilla, allowing him to stop Ganigan and thwart the Nebulon's plans. I really enjoyed this movie. I liked the cast, the music, and the monsters. I felt like there could have been a little more destruction because Ganigan's rampage through Tokyo is epic. The Godzilla suit is falling apart, but this doesn't bother me. I think it adds to Godzilla's fight with King Ghidorah and Ganigan. It shows how tough his opponents really are. This would be the last movie this particular suit would appear in, and in Godzilla vs. Megalon, the Godzilla suit would be redesigned. I really liked Ganigan. His design is great and unique. He's definitely one of Godzilla's toughest foes, and his chemistry with King Ghidorah is great. It's nice when monsters have their own personalities, and Ganigan's doesn't disappoint. It was great seeing King Ghidorah and Anguirus back on screen. It's always fun watching Godzilla and Anguirus talk to each other on Monster Island. This is a movie no G fan should miss. I'm going to give this movie 4 out of 5 stars.